Hello friends, and welcome back. In this video I want to talk about the real sound of tubes, well, now you might think that's an easy answer. You just take a tube amplifier and you're done, you get the sound of tubes. And that sort of considers that tube sound is a coloration that is done, even though directly heated tubes are one of the lowest distorting amplifying devices known to man, or the lowest directly heated triodes. Now these are the directly heated pentodes wired up in triode mode, so they have a little bit higher distortion, but still, is that the sound of tubes, the real, and can you experience it with that? I would say no. And what I'll do in this video is I'll circle around the subject a little bit and we'll get to the answer. So I'll hope you enjoy that. And it's also one of these things. Janos from Real World Audio recently made a video on one of the comments I made on one of his videos. And sometimes you need to listen to an entirely different class of sound. And that will be in the answer as well. So maybe you can already guess what it is, but we'll get into it now. How did I get to this story or this subject? I read a forum comment somewhere, and I don't remember where, but somebody said if you want to listen to the transition of tubes to transistors, listen to this album. This is a good example, they said, because his earlier tracks, so this is the greatest hits of Sinatra, and it is it has all the transitions, so it has his older hits and his newer hits, and in it you can actually hear the transition from tube studios with tube microphones, and it's slowly transitioning to transistor-based studios. And the thing is, with Sinatra, he always insisted on recording the whole track live with his orchestra and doing one take. So sometimes it was frustrating. You'll see that it was often recorded over several days, an album of his. But that means there's a lot of in his music. There's a lot of integrity within a single track, because it was recorded live, and it was not multi-tracked. So that makes it interesting comparison material, I think. But the question here then is, and this sort of got me thinking: can you hear the transistor? Can you really hear that? And yes, you can. However, I think the effect is far more limited than you think you should be able to observe. And the reason is, this greatest hits album, this is a reissue from 1976. And I think this thing was almost guaranteed, 99% certain, that this was done with a transistor-based disc cutter amplifier. Because they need like a 200, 400 watt amplifier that actually operates the disc cutter from the signal that from the final mix on the tape, and that went through this. And what I'm arguing is basically this thing. Say you have a capacitor, and your whole music chain so goes in your preamp, and it has one of these in there as an isolation capacitor. So all the limitations that this capacitor brings will be present in the rest of the signal. It has already colored the sound, and so every element adds it. And what I'm arguing here is that the disc cutter, driven by transistors, especially these early transistors, would have a definite limitation on. So if you want to hear the sound of tubes, you hear tube via disc cutter that use this type of technology to hear it. And what I'm saying is, it is not entirely a fully tube sound. And this was just, of course, at this point, before hearing anything else, my theory. However, it actually got confirmed. here we go. Now this is a music club edition of a album, and this is from 1957. This was cut in 1957. This was for an Australian music club, so it's an interesting release. But this was the first time first or second time that I heard an album that was recorded with tubes, had a disc cutter with tubes, was put on vinyl, was preserved since 1957, and I can play it. This is just silver wiring going through there, comes out that. Unfortunately there's some sand in between, and then goes to my tube amplifier and then goes to the speakers. So I've cut out most of the transistor based sound, and you know what? Something clicked. And the nice thing about this as well is 1957 was really before his comeback and before he went to Las Vegas. So it's a nice album anyway. So just for those of you that might like him, this was before the showbiz element came into his music. So I think it has much more feel, emotion. There's much more subtlety, less showmanship in his in his singing. So. And compare that, and combined with having a full tube amp chain, if you will, from recording, being recorded in one go, put onto disc. I think you can. This is on a whole new level compared to what I'm hearing here. This sort of got me really in touch with the real sound of tubes when the whole chain is like this, and it is a really pleasant, a really nice. The music is so, if you will, quiet. It is you know, you can just fall back in your chair and then just lean back. It is like it washes over you because there's no mechanical element in there that you feel is present in the music. So if you like tube amplifiers, I would recommend, not necessarily this album, but see if you can get a record that is just dated from the 50s or something, where you just know that the whole chain was tubes, and put that on and see what you then think. I'll be interested to see if you have any recommendations of albums or similar experiences. Just let me know in the comments. And one more thing to just put in this video. Let me just have a look at my laptop here. Let's see if this. Now I'll link this in the description, but this is a video, and it's let me see if I can find the title. So it's called this Kevin Gray Coherent Records. Now this man, and you can see him here, this is a he uses, I don't know. So he's standing next to his recording studio. This man built basically an entire recording studio based on tubes. So everything is tubes, from everything, from the microphone and he had to rebuild everything. So from microphone to recording to mixing to the disc cutter, for which he actually uses, I forgot the brand that he was using there. But it's a whole story. It's a very nice video, and basically what he's done is rebuild an entire studio as they would have had it. So I think it is very interesting, and it might also be interesting to see which releases come from his studio, because he will cut them direct to disc as well, yeah, which might be a modern way to experience more modern recorded music, entirely recorded by tubes. And one of the things he also does is very interesting, is that he records directly to tape, but then he also does a digital copy, not from the tape, because he doesn't want it to rerun every time, but he runs the digital in parallel, and the digital tape is given to the musician, so he can give as many copies as they need without having to touch the master tape. Very clever, so you then get no degradation for that until you start cutting the disc. And yeah, if you keep it at that and you don't splice the tape and you don't do anything with that, you of course get maximum quality out of the magnetic tape. Anyway, I'll leave the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please have a go with it. To me, it was a bit of a revelation, as said. Janos recently had a video about hearing entirely different categories of sound. And I think it's on par with, for example, hearing the difference between an amorphous core and a normal core transformer. It is just a different category, and this is really the sound of something like this, where the entire chain has been tubed. To my mind, now it stands as the benchmark for tube sound. And yeah, I think it's something that you, if you're a real audiophile, and especially if you like tube amps, you deserve to have a go with that and really give yourself that experience of what that sounds like. And that can be a nice benchmark. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a brilliant day, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Bye bye.